Hello, guys. Back to another episode of Penny for My Thoughts. And happy holidays. I wanted to make this video about how much God blesses me. And I feel like a lot of people, thank God for materialistic things or thank God when, they bring them from sickness or save their life. But me personally, I get materialistic blessings all the time, but the things that stand out to me are the spiritual and emotional blessings that God has given me. Just, you know, bringing me from a long way and helping me evolve spiritually, growth wise, emotionally. Because, as a kid, I've been through a whole lot of stuff. There were things that, I had to evolve from. I had to, learn how to be vulnerable in my adulthood because, like I said, I've been through a lot of things as a kid, and I didn't have a whole lot of stability and as a child. And, you know, I had to learn a lot of things getting older that God has helped me with. I made a video on here about, how God helped me to be vulnerable. And with that, you know, it was a point in my life where I was so upset and so mad and just, I used to deal with being sad as anger. I couldn't, if I would cry, it was because I was mad. Like, I wouldn't cry if I was sad. If I would cry, it was because I was mad. If I was to say I was sad, that was very seldomly because I didn't feel like I wanted to look weak. I didn't, and I've always been outspoken. I'm an outspoken person. I've always been outspoken, but I felt like, being outspoken for if I'm sad, then that was just like a whole new level. So, you know, it was a point where, I was upset. I was very sad and I'm just crying and I'm mad because I'm mad, but because I'm sad and I'm praying to God. I'm like, you know, God, like I'm sad because I feel like I shouldn't be done wrong by this person or whatever, or the things this person said to me, and I'm always I give them the complete opposite. So I'm just sad and mad and I'm just crying, and God was like, you got to separate your pain from your anger. And I knew exactly what it meant. I had to separate my pain from my anger because, you know, basically saying, like, feel the sadness. Say when you're sad. Don't just come off as angry because, even if you come to this person, you're coming off as angry, but you're not really saying, look, I'm sad. I'm not angry. I mean, I am angry, but I'm more sad than anything. And that was an instance in where God was like, and that helped me to be vulnerable. That helped me to be open. It helped me to be vulnerable. And that's just one of and this happened in my late adult, late 20s, closer to 30s. And, another instance of God just growing me up and giving me emotional growth blessings is, me starting to embrace writing. I've always, all my life, and I'd say as older as, grade school, like, I always just would write. And I really never embraced it. I always just thought it was something it was a hobby. So, once I started embracing it, it helped me to be more open, more expressive, and live in my truth. Like, literally. And I wrote a quote about it, and I said, I stopped living with walls when I start writing with mirrors. Basically saying I stopped having walls up because when I started writing, I became more expressive. It helped me live in my truth. It helped me, you know, just to put the pieces together, even with the vulnerability thing. And like I say, I've always been outspoken, but, it took it to a whole nother level. It helped me to live in my truth to the point where, not to worry about what I look like or how I sound like or whatever. It helped to build up my self-esteem. You know, if I had an issue, it helped me to accept my flaws and not worry about, oh, well, I have this flaw, somebody gonna say something about it. Or, if I'm this way, somebody's gonna have something to say about it, or somebody's gonna look at me or whatever. That is living in our truth. I used to be the type of person where, and it goes into the vulnerability thing of, I don't want to show weakness. So if I'm having an issue, issue relationship or whatever, I wouldn't say anything because, it would make me look a certain type of way, like I can't handle my life and I can't handle things and all that other type of stuff. And, I would, not talk about it. And, I'm a strong person, but, you know, I felt like, okay, I got to be strong all the time, and I can't show a crack. And that has its pros and its cons because that computes to other people. When they see you, oh well, she's a strong person or he's a strong person, and they don't need any help. They don't need nobody to check on them, and you do, but I've put off of, okay, well, I'm fine. I don't even need this. And God helped me to get through that too and be like, look, when you're not fine, you're not fine. Live in your truth. Not only live in your truth and live in your flaws, but say them. Now I will read a list of my flaws and live in all of them. And no one can say anything to me about it because there's nothing that I cannot, admit to flaw wise, a quirk or whatever, or something I'm not good at or something I'm bad at or whatever. I will just outright say it before anybody else does. God has evolved me into being able to do that. I used to not be that person. I used to, things that have happened to me. I've been to therapy a couple of times, and I used to, being as a younger kid, didn't really care to go to therapy either, or not to even realize of my own mental health and things like that. God helped me evolve in that too, and to be like, look, you have anxiety, you get ADHD, and there are some things that you can go talk to some people about. That's why nowadays I am such an advocate for mental health. I am such an advocate for living your truth. I am such an advocate for it because God has helped me get there. And once I got there, I never turned back. And those are the emotional, spiritual gifts that I value so much because it grew me as a person. And I'm still growing. I just turned 35. I'm still growing as a person, spiritually, mentally. I, I learn something all the time. I still have insecurities and stuff like that, but every along the way, I'm always learning something new. Just a couple months ago, and I'm not super religious, whatever that means. I do come from a Christian religious background, but I feel like in certain religions there are certain things where judgmental people, and there's a whole lot of judgments that I don't abide by, and I don't feel like that people should judge people like that. So, but God has always been a constant in my life, and I've learned how to not just follow, my religious background, but actually have a relationship with God. But I am still a sinner. And I pray to God, be like, God, I know I'm a sinner. God, I know I have flaws and things like that. And even those things have kind of made me in my mind feel like, okay, well, I have to, I tell God, look, I have too many issues, God. I have too many problems. I'm a sinner. How can I even talk about you? How can I even lead and or guide anybody or talk about you, God? Because I don't even feel qualified. And just a couple months ago, I learned about spiritual imposter syndrome. And I was like, God, I feel like an imposter. Like, I'm so imperfect. I'm a sinner. I got anxiety. I got intrusive thoughts. I do sinful things sometimes. I think sinfully. Sometimes I got an attitude. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm not obedient to you, God. I'm not. And but I'm like, God, you make me so outspoken and you make me feel so much inspiration and motivation, not only just for myself, but to even give others. And I can't help it. So, but I said, but God, I feel like an imposter. I go on Google, spiritual imposter syndrome. And it's like, okay, you feel like I felt like I wasn't worthy enough. I'm not righteous enough. I don't go to church every Sunday. You know, I got so many issues. I'm not, I don't know the Bible like the back of my hand, God. I'm not, you know, I hear worldly things, or whatever that means. There's a whole lot of things in religion that I don't agree with. I don't, and I learned, and this is just a couple months ago, like I say, I'm still learning, God, like, Google it. This is what Google how you feel. And I bet you there's an answer. And spiritual imposter syndrome, me feeling like, I can't talk about certain things because I don't feel qualified. And, and they do say, that that's just negativity. It is. It is negativity. And, I felt like that. And I was like, you know what, God, thank you. Another thing you helped me to grow from. Because I am not perfect. I have so many flaws and I'm always learning, like I said. I thank God so much. When I pray, I be like, God, I thank you for the emotional, the spiritual growth. It makes the materialistic even better. Because I have come from a lot, literally. And when I say a lot, that's not nothing. A lot of them aren't choices I've made. It's just things that have been done to me, or just things I've gone through. And even some of the things that even me growing up, and like, there's a lot of things that I've seen like other people doing, like, in their life, that God just was like, you don't need to be getting into, you don't need to be doing. And that's another thing that kind of made me feel like, okay, well, God, I don't want to feel like I'm better than anybody. Even though I don't do certain things, and, I don't get into certain stuff that I see other people do, or I have a different perspective of different things. God, I am not better than nobody else. And I struggle with that too, of just, I don't want to feel like, I'm on my high horse. Well, this person has done this when they were younger, and I just chose not to do it because I like, my perspective is a little bit different than, this person or that person or whatever. But I have flaws. I have, I'm bad at some things. But, and that also made me feel like, how can I compute that, I'm humble. I am one of the humblest people. God helped me to be that too. God helped me to be humble. I can't, and in that kind of teeter with of what I just said, of, God, I don't want to, even though I'm strong, even though, I have a different perspective, even though, God, you give me so much wisdom, I want to remain humble at all times, God. Even though, God, you bless me, God, I know I can lose everything tomorrow. I don't want to downlook nobody, because whatever somebody else do, or whatever they were, or whatever this and that, I could have been the same one, God. And not only that, you can change them too. You know, I battle with myself with that, and sometimes a little bit I do, and that goes into the spiritual imposter syndrome of me not wanting to come off as I'm so perfect or whatever, because I'm so far from not. Literally, I'm so far from not. Even I would be nothing without God. Period. And even me saying that sometimes, I've gone back and forth with myself on that, because I know, like, and this goes back to, like, talking about God and everything else. Of there's a two view. People, super religious people, can be like, oh, she's this and that, and no, I'm not perfect. But then there's other people, like there's people that don't believe in God, and I don't judge them, because you never know what they have gone through. And I said this thing where I say, like, people sometimes, and I say super religious, and I say super religious for a reason, because I mean, I don't use that loosely. There are people that are, super religious, or they like to act super religious. Me, I have a relationship with God, but I do not know how to read the Bible like the back of my hand. I don't, I used to not be a prayer. I am definitely a prayer now, but I can't say that I pray every single day. Sometimes, life and this and that, and I'll be like, God, forgive me for not praying yesterday or whatever. But, you know, like I say, like, I know there are some people that don't believe in God, and some, they just say, look, I don't believe in God, and why? I don't judge them either. But I don't want to come off as a person where just because I talk about God, I feel like I'm better than them, because I'm not. Because I still have flaws. Because there are times where I'm angry at God, and I'm like, God, like, my faith is just not up there today, you know, and that's being a human being. You know, I'm not the most holy in a super religious or righteous person's eyes, or so that also made me kind of disqualified. But God is like, you are exactly who I made you to be. you know you know I've you still got some growing up to do, and I feel like any age you can grow up. I've made a video about this. Like, any age you can grow up. When I get 90, God might grow me up. If I live to be 90, God might, give me another uh, spiritual or, emotional growth blessing. And I learned from that, but God has helped me just live in my truth, and living in my truth is the freeingest thing ever. Ever. To just be like, not only do I not care about, how, and when they say, like, the enemy or the devil attack you, yes, he does. Use your flaws and everything. Not only do I not care about, how the devil gets to my mind or whatever, and I have anxiety. And, sometimes I'm with that. God has helped me even with my anxiety. Be like, look, I may not can't beat it, but I can fight it. God helps me every day to deal with it. To be like, look, that's just an intrusive thought. That those negative thoughts that you have, that's just an intrusive thought. I made a quote about it of, look, they say that your mind is a devil's playground. I made a quote say, look, if the devil's gonna be in my mind on the playground, I'm gonna make sure the devil not have any fun. I'm gonna make sure the playground is just, the swings is all torn up and is dirty and everything, until he just leaves. But God has helped me to, purposely deal with a lot of things and be aware of, my flaws, aware of, you know, my mental health and my mental issues and things like that. Help me be aware of it intentionally. God has helped me be intentional about, you know, what I do, intentional about what I say, intentional. Now, sometimes though, I'm not the most obedient guy. Look, I get upset. I get an attitude if you make, if you destroy my peace and stuff like that. I'll be like, God, I know I had to tell this person off and this and that, but just forgive me, God. I still have some work to do, God. You still working on me. But, you know, I like to, be a human being too. And God has helped me, to forgive myself of things. Also, forgive other people. And I'm still working on the forgiveness thing, because sometimes forgiveness comes with an anchor. And people will just do you so wrong sometimes. You be like, God, and you gotta just, I'll be like, God, like, help me intentionally forgive them over and over and over again if I have to. But God has helped me to do that too. You know, God has, helped me just appreciate my flaws. Like, I talk a lot. I used to feel like, and like I say, I used to be not the biggest talker. I'm definitely the biggest talker now because God has helped me express myself. And God has, not only in writing, but just talking too. I embraced it. And when I beginning to start to embrace it, I was like, well, God, I feel like I talk too much. And I feel like, maybe people gonna say I talk too much and I'm just, just pouring out things and all the other type of stuff. And, and God just helped me feel like, look, this is what I put in you. You may not have knew it back then. You may not have embraced it, but now that you have, ain't no turning back. And you might as well, you know, just you might as well stop feeling bad about it, because what you think may not be what other people think. You're telling yourself how somebody else might perceive you when you really don't even know. So God helped me to think about that. And even if I do like, I can have, like I said, look, I got anxiety, I can have those thoughts today or tomorrow, you know just worrying. And God has helped me to be intentional about catching my worry. Sometimes I worry and don't even know I'm worrying about it. But God's like, look, you worrying about it, but I'm going to intentionally help you to, you know, you may have worried about it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but I'm going to intentionally at that point help you to, like, look, that was a worry. Or, you may have worried about this situation all yesterday, but today I'm going to help you intentionally be like, that was yesterday. And that is a thing, I got to constantly work at. But I feel like God is always there with me, helping me do it. Because, they say for people that don't have like anxiety, especially when we come in, like, when we start talking about, religion and like people talking about God, they'll say, like, don't worry, or, God, don't worry about things. And sometimes, that's hard not to. Sometimes, and I can speak about this because I'm a person with anxiety, sometimes you don't even know you're worrying. But like I say, God is there to be like, hey, you're worrying, giving me the alarm. You worrying now you worrying, just being intentionally about knowing I'm worrying. I Even before and like I said, I been to therapy a couple times, and I had to change my recent therapist because I relocated. So, but God even helped me to learn stuff about myself before I even got to the therapist. I went to my therapist and I was like, hey, I feel robotic. I feel like, things have happened to me, in my childhood, things have happened to me in my life, and, it was just swept under the rug. And I feel like I'm, a robot. And like there's things that I can't even talk about because I don't even know how to handle it, even in my adult life. And I went to my therapist, like, I feel robotic. Things in my life have been swept under the rug so much that I want to rip the band-aid off. I want to rip the rug off, you know? And God helped me in that before I even know that, before I even got to the therapist. I learned that I had intrusive thoughts before the therapist even told me I had intrusive thoughts. I'm like, God, like, I think of these things and this and that. God, Google it. Intrusive thoughts. The therapist didn't tell me I had intrusive thoughts. God showed me where to look. And I told the therapist I had intrusive thoughts. Again, God helping me and emotionally preparing me even for the things that even the therapist didn't touch. You know, I had it just even things where I had to uncover things that happened in my childhood, and me figuring out why I just couldn't, just couldn't get why it was bothering me a certain way that it was bothering me. I figured it out before I even went to did I even talked about the therapist. I was like, okay, this is what it is. I had to dig deep myself, and God was like, look, this is what it is. This is why it's bothering you in this certain way. This is why, you just don't understand it. This is why. And it helped me so much. And I was able to, even when I talked to my therapist, I was able to, you know, tell her why, this was an issue, figure out, what an issue was about this or that or whatever. A lot of things God helped me to figure out on my own. And if I couldn't figure it out, He showed me where to look. I used to, and like I said with anxiety, there were times where I couldn't even sleep sometimes because, I'm feeling like something's going to happen to me, or I might not wake up, or whatever, this and that. And like I say, I don't know the Bible well, but God pointed me to a scripture in Proverbs. And like I said, don't ask me what the scripture was because I am not the best with the Bible. That is something but literally after I read this scripture, it helped me to sleep and to know that, look, nothing's going to happen to me. And if it did, God, at least, I have faith, God, that I would be with you, God. You know, whatever happens. But it helped me to sleep and not worry about, oh, I'm gonna be unalive in my sleep, or something's gonna follow me or whatever. Those intrusive thoughts. And God has helped me mentally and spiritually, even when I get intrusive thoughts, to know what they are, to know how to deal with them, to know how to handle them. Those are the emotional and spiritual blessings that I appreciate because it can carry me all the days of my life. And I feel like God gives me, I call them upgrades. Like, how you upgrade your Android phone or upgrade your Apple phone. I call those like upgrades to myself, learning about myself. I and even having subcategories of learning about myself. Like I said, how I embrace writing. I embrace writing, and I have a certain writing style, and I don't know why I would do it. I just have a certain writing style, and I was like, I feel like my writing style isn't right. Like, that's just not right. Google it. It has a name. My writing style has a name, and I thought that, I'm just not a good writer because the way I write this way, and, and all this other type of stuff. Everything I worry about, God is like, look, there's a name for it. There's a way that, you can go find out what it is, you know, go and just go online or ask somebody or whichever. So, I appreciate that. I appreciate those blessings. I appreciate the emotional, the spiritual blessing. And I'm still going. I'm still going to go on. I'm still, God is still constantly helping me learn about myself. Constantly. But this was another penny for my thoughts. And again, as I always say, keep your mental healthy.